And welcome to the Behind the Dunes podcast. I'm your host, Connor, and today I'm here with the one, the only, John J.R. Robinson, professional golfer, professional realtor, professional comic. You need no introduction. John, how are you?
Well, that was an introduction.
Yeah.
And, you and I were talking a little bit before this podcast started, and your voice was very different then. I mean, you've got your own professional voice, don't you?
There's some settings in here. I press buttons, make myself sound better.
Yeah, you do. You sound good.
I actually have a really high-pitched, squeaky voice, not in front of this mic.
And I've listened to some of the other realtors on the podcast, and they all sound great.
Yeah.
And you do a really good job, and I'm happy to be here today.
And, I'm happy to have you. It's
I know you are.
It's a great day.
Yeah.
The weather is weather, and
well, I got to say one thing before we start.
Go ahead.
To the listening audience of, I'm sure, where do they listen to this podcast, by the way?
This is going to be on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
Everywhere?
Everywhere.
Excellent.
It's going to be on the internet.
I'll tell you what, and I don't know
forever.
if anybody else has said this, but, I know Connor pretty well. Everybody does. Who doesn't? But can anyone else say that they've played golf with Connor? Has John Floyd played golf with you?
He has.
Okay. John's sort of a beginner golfer, so maybe he wouldn't notice this. But you are very good at golf. You've got a tremendous club head speed. You do. It's a small club head, and if you're swinging that fast, and if it opens up a little bit, the ball's gone. But you have a real tremendous swing. So
thank you, John.
I'll give you that.
I appreciate it. I did dabble in golf before I was a photographer. So,
well, you do a good job in both.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Actually, I played golf with Pete, John. I think that's it. But
well, I'm sure Pete Popovich noticed it. I mean, he's one of the premier teachers around here too. I mean, he's got an eye for golf, that's for sure. Pete and I, am I allowed just to talk at random?
Yeah.
Pete and I came to Hilton Head 1990. It was February 11th, 1990. I was a tennis pro at Sea Pines Racket Club. That's what brought me here. I was 25 years old, and I was at Sea Pines Racket Club. And one of our perks back then was we got to play free golf. It was a company perk, so we could play golf at Sea Pines. So we'd go over and play. It was then called the Ocean Course and Sea Marsh Course. Now they're called Atlantic Dunes and Heron Point. But back then I'd go and he hates this term, but one of the cart guys was old Pete, and he had hair. He had a bunch of hair on his head. Same exact personality. I mean, you got to know him to know what I'm talking about. But he's really created, he went from a good golfer and a cart guy to one of the best teachers around this area. I mean, he's a heck of a teacher.
He's a pretty decent real estate agent too.
Very good.
He was my real estate agent.
Was he?
Yeah.
That's, Pete and I share an office together, so I see what he does. And, I don't work nearly as hard as he does. He gets on the phone and when he comes to work, he's not playing solitaire on his computer. He's there to work, and it's paying off for him.
Yeah. So John, JR, do you prefer John or JR?
My name is John Robinson, and the first time someone called me JR was when I was a tennis pro at Sea Pines Racket Club, because we had another John on staff. So everyone started calling me JR, and it sort of stuck. It's I never thought I'd be an initial guy, but it's sort of a cool sounding, and at least it's not like EF or something like that, or GH, but it's JR is pretty cool. So I like it. For me, it's casual. And if you call me JR, then that means we're friends. So yeah, call me JR.
Well, we're friends here. So on this podcast, you're JR.
Yeah. Anybody can call me JR.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. But you know what some people do is they call me John J.R. Robinson, or they call me J.R. Robinson, not knowing that the R is for Robinson. But anyway, that's a little history.
So besides us both being from Maryland and randomly winding up on the same flights together, connecting through New York, we're going to start back with where you grew up And what was life like for JR growing up?
Well, there's a place called Berwyn Heights, Maryland. Boy, you people listening to this, you better sit back, grab your coffee, and here we go.
We're
Berwyn
going on a
Heights,
trip.
Berwyn Heights, Maryland, which is next to Greenbelt, Maryland, which is it's in Prince George's County, very close to Washington D.C. So big time Redskin fan all my life, and I know they're called something different now, but not in my family. Grew up in Berwyn Heights, Maryland, back in the 60s and 70s. And, my father owned back then it was a fine house, but looking at it now, it's a very small house. There were 3 bedrooms, very small, 1 bathroom upstairs. And then downstairs was a finished basement and a half a bathroom, my father's office. And my parents had 4 kids. My big brother, it was me, and I have 2 twin sisters who are a bit younger than me. And we had a white German Shepherd. His name was Prince. He was real nice to family, but not nice to anybody else. But Prince was the best dog. And my father was an electrician, and he started his own company called Robbie's Electric. Robbie being a nickname for Robinson. And then he soon called it Spartan Electric after that. So Spartan Electric. And, we growing up in Berwyn Heights, Maryland, obviously we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have movies on TV at the snap of a finger. For us back in the 70s to go to the movies was maybe once a summer we did it. And it was like going to the carnival, getting a thing of candy and a Coke and watching the movie. It was the most magical thing. Same thing with going to a pool. We didn't have pools at all in our community, and I think once a summer my mom would take us to the pool, and it was glorious to go to a pool. And of course, you had bikes, and you had Hot Wheels cars, and you had your best friends. My best friends were Jack Payne, who is still one of my greatest friends in the world. We had friends like Kenny Hoban and friends like Danny Brubaker. And we played baseball, we played football, and that was my childhood. And then, my father's business was doing better, and he decided to move the family to Montgomery County, Maryland, which is a big step. It was a big step, and we moved from Berwyn Heights to Gaithersburg, Maryland, to a place called Montgomery Village, which is in Gaithersburg, a community designed and built by the Kettler brothers, they were a big builder up in the Maryland area.
They still are. The Washington Capitals practice facility is named after them, the Kettler Ice Complex.
There you go. And they were brothers, and I think there was a brother-in-law involved. And so it was for us. We moved there in 1976, and that's pretty much, the community started really in 74, 75. But we were almost pilgrims there, and every corner was a pool. Every corner was a set of 2 tennis courts. There was even a fitness center part of the community, and that today that's normal. But back then it was man, we had made it. It was the best. I went to Greenbelt. Sorry, no, that was the other place. I went to Montgomery Village Junior High School. And then when I got to high school, I went to Seneca Valley High School in Germantown, Maryland. And anyway, so that's when my tennis started, back in like today, what's the most amazing sport that's overtaking the world right now?
It's pickleball.
It's called pickleball. Drives me nuts, and I hope I don't upset anybody, but it's not my cup of tea, maybe because I grew up as a tennis player. And back in 1973 and 74, that's when there was a huge eruption of tennis. People would fight for a tennis court. And I'm not kidding you. They'd fight for a court. They had these clipboards hanging on the fence. We had to go there and put your name on it from 10 to 11. Robinson has this court. And you were standing there 10 minutes till 10 to wait for the other people to get off. And you're walking on right at 10 o'clock. That's how crazy tennis was back then. So I fell in love with tennis, and tennis is really what brought me to Hilton Head. But before that, I played tennis as a 10-year-old, 11, 12, took a tennis lesson in Montgomery Village, fell in love with tennis. It was, I played baseball, I played football, played basketball. I was pretty good at baseball, but not really the others. But tennis just really grabbed me, man. And I really fell in love with tennis and played high school tennis. And then I got, before I went to 4-year college, I was at a junior college in Maryland when I was 18, 19. And I won the Maryland State Junior College Championships. It was me, John Robinson, 19 years old. And I won it. I won it 7-6, 6-1 in the finals. Never forget it. So that's really what helped me get a scholarship. So I got a scholarship to go to college at University of South Carolina in Spartanburg, South Carolina. It was called USCS back then. Now it's called USC Upstate. So I was, the first scholarship tennis player at USC Upstate. That was me. And that's pretty much why I got to Hilton Head, because I went to college in South Carolina. And you know what happens when you go to college? You make the best friends in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Your friends in college, I may have 1 or 2 friends from high school that I still stay in touch with, but friends from college are real special. And you do some things that you'll never forget, and you learn how to be an adult, and you learn how to be on your own. And the friends that you make at college are real important. So when I graduated, I said, I want to find a teaching job, a tennis teaching job in South Carolina. That's where all my friends are. So
what year is this?
Graduated in 1989. And luckily, in the summer of '89, I interviewed for a job at the Sea Pines Racquet Club. And what is the Sea Pines Racquet Club? It's just a club with courts, but it's really not. Back in the 70s and the 80s, the Sea Pines Racquet Club was one of the premier resort racquet clubs in the country. Why? Because we had the tennis tournament. It was called the Family Circle Magazine Cup, and which is now in Charleston, named something different. But one of the biggest 1-week women's professional tournaments happened to be at the Sea Pines Racquet Club. And Chris Everett, Martina Navratilova, Steffi Graf, Billie Jean King, they've all won there. They've all played tennis, competed, and won tournaments at the Sea Pines Racquet Club. And, so I had the opportunity to have a job interview there, and I just couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. They were hiring 2 tennis pros, and I interviewed for one of the spots, and I got it. And it was the best, the coolest thing I've ever done. Partly I'm 25, and I have a tennis job. I'm teaching tennis at the beach. That's how I saw it. I had a Jeep, a red Jeep Wrangler. Top was always down. And I rented a condo on Hilton Head, across the street from the beach. And nobody, and this is when the Wild Wing Cafe opened. This was the summer of 1990, baby. Nobody had a better life than me. I'm telling you. Teaching tennis, meeting all these new friends down here in Hilton Head. The Wild Wing Cafe is opening, which is, that's another story. And I tell you what, at 25 years old, I said, I found the place where I'm going to retire. This is it. And guess what? I'm still here. I'm still here for many, many reasons. So that's my upbringing.
So how did you get from Spartanburg to here when, Hilton Head in the late 80s, early 90s definitely wasn't as big as it is now?
That's right.
So how did you find your way from 4 hours north down here? Were you just like, beach? Got to be beach?
Well, look, I was a tennis pro in the summers. When I was at college, I was a tennis pro during each summer. And one summer, actually, before I went to college, I was a tennis pro at the John Newcomb's Tennis Ranch in Texas. And from there, that's when I got my scholarship. I sent out, some tapes of myself playing. And so that's how I secured my scholarship. But the next summer, I was a tennis pro at John Gardner's Tennis Ranch in Carmel Valley, California, which was, um, I got to play tennis with Merv Griffin and Ava Gabor and General Alexander Haig, who was in the Nixon White House. But it was, and I saw, what's the lady on Wheel of Fortune, Vanna White. She was there. It was just an incredible summer. And then the next 2 summers, I taught tennis at the Columbia Country Club in Chevy Chase, Maryland, which is right next door to D.C. and a very historic country club in the D.C. area. It held a U.S. Open golf championship back in the 20s, but not the 2020s, the 1920s.
How close is that to Congressional?
A little bit down the road. It's real close to Chevy Chase Club,
Yeah.
but it's Bethesda Country Club and Congressional, and it's just a mecca of old money, old school country clubs. And I got the chance to teach at that club. And from there, when I graduated, how did I get to Hilton Head? When I graduated, I sent out, I went back home and I was teaching tennis in Chevy Chase, Maryland. And so I sent out probably 40 resumes. And this is before you can email. This is 1989. We didn't have emails back then. So you had to type up, not on a computer, but on a typewriter. You type up your resume and you go to Staples and you print it out. You run copies.
I know somebody who still uses a typewriter.
Is his name Paul Daniels?
I think it might be.
One of the best realtors we have in our company, Paul Daniels.
One of the nicest guys.
And so, I printed out and copied, made copies of my resume and cover letter. And then I mailed them all off to 40 different places around the world. Look, when you're 24, you want to hit the ground running, and you want to travel, and you want to go meet people, and that was me. So I sent it all over the place, and I got 3 job offers. One was at a country club in Georgia. Thank you very much, but I'll pass. The second one was at a club resort in Maui, Hawaii. It's called the Kapalua Tennis Gardens. And then the third one was at the Sea Pines Racket Club on Hilton Head Island. And I thought, well, that's South Carolina. All my friends are still in like Greenville and Spartanburg and, upstate South Carolina. So I thought, if I go to Hawaii, I might see my parents once a year. So let's go to South Carolina. Let's go down there and interview. I did. And luckily I got the job, and my tennis life was off and running, and I loved my tennis life before real estate. After Sea Pines, I was there for 3 years, and then I became a pro at the Vandermeer Tennis Center here on Hilton Head. Dennis Vandermeer was, unfortunately, he passed a few years, but Dennis Vandermeer was the most historic tennis coaches we've ever seen. There's a difference between a tennis coach and a tennis teacher. I should say tennis teacher. A tennis coach is one who takes a player and coaches them up for tournaments, but a tennis teacher helps people like you and me learn how to play tennis, learn how to have fun with tennis. He was the master at locating errors in a stroke and correcting errors in a easy to remember style. There was no one better at teaching someone how to play tennis. No one. And so I learned from him. I became a head pro at the Vandermeer Tennis Center, which was a big deal to me. And from then, I eventually moved out of tennis and decided, after talking to my father and a few other people, decided to become a realtor. And that was a great way for me to stay here on Hilton Head. If I'm going to leave tennis, then what else do I do here? Let's become a realtor. And
when was this?
When did I decide to do this? It was 2003 when I was 40 in 2003. Things happen when you're 40, not just a new hip, but things start to happen when you're 40. And then you see the other pros who are hitting for 10 hours a day back and forth with players, and they're 26 years old. Then you sort of realize, let's get a smarter profession, So 2003, I decided that I'm going to go for it. And, then I took the course in the summer of 2004, the real estate course, 60 hours of education, very intense to prepare you for the real estate business. And then in September, sorry, it was, well, I went to another company. Am I allowed to bring up the name of that company? Yeah, they're no longer here. It was called a company called the William F. Hilton Company, run by my friend Greg James, who was the broker in charge and also an active realtor at the time. Small company, but he had some superstars at that company, like Rick Saba was there at the time, Castellane was there, John McMahon was there. Some of these realtors who are still here on Hilton Head with different companies, but then I realized I needed a bigger company, a company that offered training and guidance. And for a new realtor, it's tough. It's not easy. Why is that? Because look, you can go to school all you want, learn how to do it, learn all the laws, learn what the contracts mean, learn when to use a specific contract or an addendum. You can even learn, excuse me, you can even learn inventory. Inventory means the homes listed for sale, the condos listed for sale. You can learn inventory. You can even learn pricing. But what you don't really innately learn is how to help people from start to finish. Sometimes it's a very scary process for a buyer. So sometimes you have to hold their hand and go at their pace and make sure that they're safe along the way, that they're doing the right thing. And that's the skill that takes a little bit to figure out. And that's why I came to Dunes Real Estate. This company, we used to be called Dunes Marketing Group, but wisely we changed the name to add real estate to it. So Dunes Real Estate. I've been here for started in January 2005, so 19 years, I guess. And it's why did I come here? Because we had a lot of agents. We had a lot of very experienced agents. And what does that mean? That it trickles down, and you learn from listening to the other agents. And the whole goal here, and the biggest thing I learned in my courses for real estate, and the biggest thing that I learned from listening to the other experienced agents years ago, was the consumer is the most important part of this whole process. That's why we're doing it. We're not doing it to make a paycheck. We're not doing it to have a great lifestyle. The whole goal here is to protect the consumer. And if for instance, if they make an offer on a property and at the last second they want to withdraw, you try to whittle down to what's going on, why are you having an issue? But if that's what they want to do, that's what we do. So that's the biggest thing I've learned.
So we're going to back it up here a little bit because we skipped 15, 20 years. So you were at Vandermeer as the head teaching pro for that whole time, for 10 years, 15 years?
I went to Vandermeer Tennis after Sea Pines Racket Club. I left Sea Pines Racket Club March 1993. And all right, I'll back up a little bit more. I was at Sea Pines Racket Club, and there is this resort in Jamaica. It was called Swept Away Resort, and now it's it's called Couples Swept Away. It's in the Grill, Jamaica. And I found out through another tennis pro friend of mine up in D.C. that they had this program. It was a visiting tennis pro program. And I was like, what? What is that? Tell me, Ed, tell me what this is. And so, if you're a certified tennis pro, either by the USPTA or the PTR, then you could go there for a week. You got to fly yourself there. You can bring a guest too. So I brought my great friend Lisa, and we went to Jamaica in, I think it was January 1992. Nope, January 1993. And, I taught tennis for maybe 3 hours a day, and the rest of the time you're a guest. You don't get paid for teaching tennis, but you don't have to pay to be there. So that's the greatest part about being a visiting tennis pro at one of these resorts. You teach the resort courses. People sign up. They come out to learn how to hit a forehand and have a fun clinic and maybe a little round robin match, and have fun and then go back to their vacation and so that's what introduced me to going to Jamaica. And so while there was another tennis pro who was giving special clinics at the same time. And that pro was from Hilton Head Island also. That guy's name, who is still one of my great friends, his name is Gavin Cox. And Gavin was one of Dennis Vandermeer's managers at the Vandermeer Tennis Center here on Hilton Head. And Gavin went to the Swept Away Resort to give Vandermeer clinics for the week at the same time that I was there. And I'd never met him, but we met, and his beautiful wife, Jill, was with him, and we had a great time together. We went water skiing at 7:30 in the morning before our tennis classes. We had a few cocktails at dinner, and then Gavin talked to me about the Vandermeer Tennis Center, if you know what I mean. So in March 1993, I said goodbye to the Sea Pines Racket Club and moved over to the Vandermeer Tennis Center here on Hilton Head. Now, Dennis Vandermeer, not only a great tennis coach, tennis teacher, but an incredible businessman he was. He, if you ever go into Shipyard right now, the Shipyard Racket Club was built sometime in the 1970s by one of the most historic tennis players of all time. Billie Jean King had a hand in the building of the Shipyard Racket Club, and it was called the Shipyard Racket Club. But then in 1993, Dennis Vandermeer purchased the Shipyard Racket Club. He didn't purchase the Shipyard Plantation, but he purchased the Racket Club. And that's why right now the sign says Vandermeer Shipyard Racket Club, because the Vandermeer Tennis organization owns it. So I was a pro at two clubs here on the island, Vandermeer Tennis Center, which is in South Forest Beach, and the Vandermeer Shipyard Racket Club. Now, Vandermeer's was such a big organization worldwide. We would travel the world to not only teach tennis, but to teach other tennis teachers, to prepare them for their certification and prepare them to take their testing to become a certified tennis teacher. So that's what we did. So we travel all over the world. And your original question was, what brought me to
Hilton Head.
Hilton Head.
Yep.
So me being a tennis pro at the Vandermeer Tennis Center, I learned a lot about not only teaching, but conducting clinics and so forth. But I forgot where I was going with this.
Sorry, we'll sidebar. Where's one of the favorite places that you've been around the world, not in the U.S.?
Sidebar. I'd say, well, Jamaica's one of them. And the last few years, I've been to Scotland. I've been to Ireland for golf with a bunch of friends. But
we'll save that for the golf part.
Yeah. Okay. When you say sidebar, what does that mean?
Like side to the conversation.
Okay.
So we'll go back to the main conversation, but this is like a side.
Are you saying we're going to cut this out?
No.
Oh.
This is going to be in it.
This is in it. Okay.
This is just like a quick side conversation.
Yeah.
Like favorite place has been,
Oh boy, I tell you.
whilst teaching tennis.
Oh, teaching tennis. I'd say Jamaica. I also went to Panama for a week to teach courses to kids and adults out there with another pro, Louis Cap, and also with the Clemson tennis coach, Chuck Creasy. And he went to talk to parents about college tennis for the kids, and Louis and I would teach tennis classes, and we were there for a week in Panama. That was a lot of fun. You think squirrels are prominent here? they don't have squirrels. They have monkeys. Their monkeys are like squirrels. They're all over the fences and really threw me off. But it was a great experience.
Okay. Okay. So we're back from the sidebar. You're up.
Well, going to Vandermeer Tennis, after meeting Gavin in Jamaica, then when we both came back to Hilton Head, and I was at Sea Pines, and we had many chats about how great the Vandermeer Tennis Center was. So I decided to leave there, Sea Pines, and go to Vandermeer Tennis, and I was there for 10 years. I started out as what they call a resident pro. The Vandermeer Tennis organization, the parent company is the Vandermeer Tennis University. And then from there's the Vandermeer Tennis Center. There's the Vandermeer Shipyard Racket Club. And then there's other clubs around the world, but it's such a international tennis organization that I stayed there for 10 years, partially because it was such a great place to be. And there was traveling, and people from all over the world would come to our clinics here in Hilton Head. So that's why I was there for so long. And eventually I became a head pro. And when you asked earlier if I was the head pro, no, because we had several head pros for different specific programs. We had a head pro who was in charge of the we called the World Class Academy, the juniors. We had a head pro who was in charge of the shipyard adult programs. We had a head pro in charge of the tennis center adult programs. And we had a head pro who was in charge of the Vandermeer Tennis University. And that was my title. So I did a little bit more traveling than some of the others. But we had several head pros. But it was a great 10-year run. And I thoroughly enjoyed being at the Vandermeer Tennis Center, partially because partially because of Dennis Vandermeer. He was such an iconic figure here on Hilton Head.
And when you, through that whole process of JR living his best life, being a tennis pro on the beach, where did you choose to live?
Here on Hilton Head?
Well, yeah.
Well, when I first came here, I came to Hilton Head in August 1989 to interview for Sea Pines. And then when I got the call from the tennis director, her name was Bunny Williams, the tennis director at the Sea Pines Racket Club. She's the one that hired me, and she's one of the superstars of the world in my eyes. She still is. She's an amazing lady, and so when she offered me the job in September '89, but the job started in February 1990. So in January 1990, I came back to Hilton Head to look for a place to stay. And of course, I brought two of my college friends with me. And so I went to somebody back in Maryland, knew Hilton Head, and she said, go see Andy Pratt at Coastal Long-Term Rentals. Coastal Long-Term Rentals is still here, but Andy Pratt has since retired. And so I went to see Mr. Pratt, and I called him Mr. Pratt for years. And I said, Mr. Pratt, I need to rent a condo. And I don't know what, I didn't know a thing about Hilton Head. We have the north end, we have the south end, we've got beach oriented, we've got off island, we got Bluffton, but
Got marina.
And we have the marina. He said, here's a set of keys, go over to Tanglewood Villas, unit number 303, in his southern accent. And he said, let me know what you think. And so I went over there, walked through it. It was furnished. It was a 2-bedroom. The rent was $550 a month. That was for a 2-bedroom furnished across the street from the beach. I said, I'll take it. And so I gave him a deposit, went back home to Maryland, then came back on February 11th, 1990, and loved where I was living. I didn't know a thing about Hilton Head. Where do you live? But it turned out that I chose the best spot on the island, in my opinion. Back then, early, let's say 80s into maybe the late 90s, the south end of Hilton Head was kicking. There were hot spots. There were fun restaurants. There was bars, which are no longer here. And because of that, we had a bunch of young people that lived down on the South End, people who in their 20s, golf pros, tennis pros, waiters, waitresses, lifeguards. A lot of young people lived on the South End because it was today it might be a little tougher to live for a 23-year-old because of rent rates, but plus there's so much more to choose from now out in Bluffton. But back then, boy, it was to live on the South End. The Wild Wing Cafe was just opening. Callahan's was, if you like playing pool, that's where you went. There's a place called Daddy Zach's, which was just a bar. We allowed to talk about bars? I
Yeah.
think so. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Hilton Head. It's
Yeah.
Hilton Head, and it was a great time to be on Hilton Head. Now's a great time, but it's different. You know, if you go down Pope Avenue from the Circle to the beach, and on the right, you'll see what the town did a few years ago, where they built the big celebration park. And I've always said that's the best thing the town's ever done. That was back then in the 90s. It was just a bunch of trees and storage for town things like, dumpsters that they didn't use. They just sort of stored them there, and it was just a big piece of property and just sitting there. But what they've turned it into is magnificent. But that's a different topic.
That park is nice.
It's beautiful. I mean, you go down to Fort Lauderdale, and they have these parks near the beach. They've got a lot more area than we do, but they have these little mini parks where you can congregate and have festivals, and for Hilton Head to do the same thing, it's just the best thing that they've done. We can have concerts there. We have our Christmas tree, the Hilton Head, the town Christmas tree there, and all kinds of festivals. I think the Chicken Wing Festival, the Wing Fest is there, and it's just a great spot to be. And if ever you want to know what's going on, just go on, find the website, or just Google it, because you've got to go down there.
You still live on the South End, right?
Mm-hmm. I do.
So you've basically lived there ever since you got here, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's I love when I first moved here. Obviously, I was a tennis pro at Sea Pines, so I learned Sea Pines. I live in South Forest Beach, and Sea Pines was there. Of course, Shipyard's on the other side, and it took me a while to really learn Palmetto Dunes, and I really didn't learn Palmetto Dunes until I became a realtor and came to Dunes Real Estate, because Palmetto Dunes Dunes Real Estate was the marketing company for many of the new communities popping up here and there in Palmetto Dunes and here in Shelter Cove. And but back when I first moved here, it was all about Sea Pines and Forest Beach for me. But now that I know the island much better, it's there's so much history here, and there's such neat and interesting things that have happened in Bluffton and Hilton Head over the last 150 years that are just part of the reason why I'm still here. It's just such a neat place to live.
So 55. All right. So you said after you were around 40, you had a conversation with your dad, and
I was leaving tennis.
You were
right?
leaving tennis, yeah.
Well, my father said, my dad was a very smart guy and business savvy, blue collar. My dad was definitely a blue collar guy, but one of those guys that was very smart with business at the same time. And he said, "Why don't you look into real estate?" And when he said that, I realized that that would be a perfect for me, a perfect job here on Hilton Head. And all my tennis career, my goal was to, look, when you're a tennis pro at a resort, it's different than if you're at a regular club or a country club, because you have people that are standing in front of you for a class or a lesson who are just there for a day or just there for a week tops or a weekend. And so you got a lot of things to do without them realizing what you're doing. And one of them is to make them comfortable. And one of them is to for them to be comfortable with your style. And so you learn how to sort of read how people react and respond, and then flex yourself to meet them. And then they'll have fun. And if they're having fun, they'll learn, they'll come back the next day, and everyone's happy. So that's sort of what I did as a tennis pro. So then when I thought, well, could I be a good realtor? Could I? Of course I can. Of course I can. And here's what I said to myself. Here's what you do. First thing is you find a realtor that you know. That's what I did. And you find one that you know, and you say, hey, can you give me like your thoughts on a typical day in the life of being a realtor? You know, I'm thinking about doing it. What can you give me your thoughts on it? And so I knew a realtor, and I asked her, and she's no longer a realtor with us, by the way. I don't really know where she went, but she told me, you know, some things about being a realtor. And but that entire time she was talking to me, she had like this little negative sort of spin on it, you know, like it was too difficult, or it was too much involved, or she just had a little edge to her. And so at the very end, she said, and I don't recommend it for everybody. That's what she said. And I was like, oh, okay. But I wasn't swayed. You know, I just, yeah. When I had my eyes set on it, and when I left her, I sort of almost giggled to myself that, you know, she doesn't seem real happy. I'm not sure where she went, but anyway, I decided to do it anyway. And so how did I get into real estate? My father recommended it to me. And, you know, it doesn't matter if you're 40, whatever your dad says, that you pay attention to it. And so I looked into it, talked to some friends, and looked and Googled it and YouTubed it. And, you know, what do you do? You know, how do you get into it? Where do you start? And so I figured it out. And you take it.
There was YouTube back then?
Yeah, this was when did YouTube start? I don't know, but I think it was 2003. I think YouTube was here. Yeah. But it wasn't Facebook, but what was the other one?
MySpace.
It was MySpace. I had a MySpace. Can you believe it? But anyway, so I decided to go for it. And you leave a tennis facility, and they have a party for you, and you're all happy and excited, and everybody's happy for you. But in the back of your mind, you're saying, am I doing the right thing here? So I said, look, I can't fail at this. I cannot fail at this. You can't go back to tennis. If you leave, you make a big deal about it, and I'm moving on to a new career. You can't in 6 months be teaching tennis again. You got to go, and you got to put your head down, and you've got to you learn it, and you've got to be the most the hardest working guy out there, and that's what I try to do. So I took my course, a 60-hour course, and passed the test, luckily, the first try, and then chose a real estate company. And how do you choose a real estate company? There's a lot of them. How do you do it? Well, there's a lot of things to factor in. One is the location of your office. One is the broker in charge, and how they work, and how they promote the agents, and how they conduct the business. And there's other things too that you factor in. So I chose, I didn't know what I was doing. So I chose a real small company. And look, if you're a new realtor, my advice is don't choose a small company. Don't do it. It's safe. It's safe because you might know the broker in charge, and it's safe. You go back and sit at your office or sit at your desk, and you wait for something to happen. That's not the way to do it. So that's what I did for 3 months. 3 months, and nothing close to having a customer that I could help. Not even close. So I decided that I needed to get to a bigger company. So I reached out to a few big companies on the island. One of them was the Sea Pines Real Estate. Had an interview there. One was Charter One. Had an interview, had a phone interview there. And then my friend Marshall Sampson, who was a realtor with Dunes Marketing Group, which is Dunes Real Estate. And I knew Marshall from just at the beach. You know, a lot of guys go down there and play volleyball, and everybody knows Marshall. And Marshall worked at Dunes Real Estate, and he said, "Hey, come talk to my broker in charge. I'll set it up for you." I said, "Thanks, Marshall." And so I went at the time. The broker in charge, his name was Bill Baldwin at Dunes Marketing Group. And why would a broker in charge be excited about bringing in a new agent who's never made a sale? I didn't know that. He asked me that. He said, why should I bring you to Dunes Marketing Group? And I said, well, I've been on the island for a long time, and I know the island really well, and I'm excited, and I can't wait to get started. That's all I had. And thank God for Bill that he gave me a shot. There's no reason for him to give me a shot. But he did. And I learned a lot from coming to Dunes Real Estate. We had a tremendous amount of training, and say, a sales meeting is training. We have sales meetings all the time, and various training sessions, either marketing type training sessions or sales training sessions. And the whole goal is, like I said earlier, to help your customer, make the right choice, and to guide them towards exactly what they're looking for. So that's what brought me to real estate, and that's what brought me to Dunes Real Estate.
So, excuse me. Let's go through the highlights real quick of your real estate career.
Well, I don't have any highlights.
JR.
All right, let me make some up.
Weren't you the president?
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, that
kind of seems like a highlight.
Okay, let me get my highlight hat on. Highlights of being a realtor?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it could be from like your favorite transaction, an accomplishment, like being the president,
Okay.
or it could be a funny moment.
Okay, that's a great question. Okay, highlights of being a realtor. One, it's always, and I think every realtor probably remembers their first sale. My first sale was in a place called Broad Creek Landing. It was a townhouse, and I think our sale price was $290,000. This was back in 2005. I remember every detail about it. I remember the home inspection. It's your first sale, so that was definitely a highlight. It's exciting. It's not just because you sold a property. It's because you helped people go from A to Z, and it really is A to Z. It's not A to B. It's A to Z. And the entire process of being a realtor is very in depth. And you're not just showing property and saying, "Hey, do you want to make an offer?" That is not what being a realtor is. It's making sure that it's the right property, and there's certain speed bumps you go over, like during the home inspection period. There might be problems, and then you've got to really address these things. So anyway, the first sale was a big highlight. And look, I became a realtor in 2004, came to Dunes Real Estate in 2005. And then, one of our realtors at Dunes Real Estate, her name is Gloria Lecoe. Gloria Lecoe is one of my superstars. She's a superstar realtor, and partially because of her community activity. Every realtor tries to do some extra things to get out in the community, but Gloria, it's in her blood. That Gloria is, and her husband Alan, Gloria and Alan, are very involved in what's going on in Hilton Head and Bluffton, and not just to show off their real estate license, but to because they really do care. So Gloria was on one of the committees at the Hilton Head Area Association of Realtors. I guess it's called the Hilton Head Association of Realtors now, but it's called the Hilton Head Association of Realtors, and Gloria was heading one of the committees. I think it was the Community Outreach Committee. And so I decided to join a committee. I wanted to do something. I got time, let's do it. And just watching Gloria, boy, once she directly came up to me and she said, "I want you to do this and that," I did it. meaning I want you to join this committee, or I want you to get onto the professional development committee. I want you to do it. And when Gloria ask that question, you do it. You just do it. So I learned a lot from watching Gloria, and giving back to the community. You're not just here to sell real estate. You're here, a realtor is really an ambassador for your community. That's how I feel about it. And because I started joining committees and doing things in the community, then all of a sudden they asked me to chair one of the committees, and I said, I don't know if I'm capable. Of course you are. Just you know how to do it. Just do it. And so I did it, and I was the chair of the community service committee, and then I was chair, I think, of another one, and then they asked me to be on the board. What do? You just sit there. You just sit there on the board and you listen to everybody. And I don't know what to do. I've never been on a board, but I did. I did it. And then a few years later, they asked me, would you entertain being the president in 2012? And I said, I don't know if I could do it. And of course I can. So I did it. So I became president of our board in 2012, president of the Hilton Head Area Association of Realtors, and Jean Beck, who's the executive vice, excuse me, the executive vice president, is tremendous. She's still doing it every year with our incoming president. She is absolutely a golden person for helping the president and the vice president and the past president, so forth, conduct their roles in a very professional way. So if it weren't for Jean, I don't know if I could have done it, but being a president of the Hilton Head Association of Realtors was a treat. It was a great experience. I'm glad I did it. And you learn a lot about it, and you gain a lot of appreciation for the whole project. So, yeah, and I recommend it. Like this realtor I talked to back in 2003, she said, I don't recommend this business for everybody, but guess what? I recommend it to everybody. I do. And when a young realtor or a young person who's considering being a realtor, if they ask me what I think, I say, hey, do it. It's I think it's the greatest thing I've ever done.
When did you pick up golf? Because I know that's the question that's on everybody's minds who's
Yeah,
watching this.
yeah.
So
they
came here for JR.
You keep the best part for last,
Yeah.
so they have to listen to the whole podcast.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So, and you can't fast forward, can you? I guess you can, but golf.
Not if I turn it off.
Golf. So, being a tennis pro, tennis was my life from the age of 10 until, when I left teaching tennis, I was 40. So tennis became a job. So I sort of, when I became a realtor, I put the tennis racket down for a bit. I thought I'd come back to it, but I never really did. Partly because I had, a hip replacement. I had it.
So you weren't joking about like the bad hip?
No, I have a hip. I've had a hip replacement.
I thought you were just like making a joke if you were like getting older. Oh, you've actually had a hip.
Yeah, I did, and I was at 37 years old when it happened too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was very young, and I also have an issue with one of my eyes. I had shingles, and it got into my eye, so it's difficult to see out of one of my eyes. So it's difficult to play tennis or ping pong.
Right.
Anything where a ball's coming towards you, it's hard to react. So I started to lean towards golf because the ball's just sitting there, and you can sort of pick it up with your eyes. And I've always played tennis ever since I've been on Hilton Head. Sorry, golf. I've always played golf on Hilton Head, but I started taking it seriously, I'd say 10 years ago, partially because I used to play golf just on Saturdays, and I had a golf group: Andres, JC, Manuel, Roddick, Jamie. Some of my golf buddies, and all of a sudden, none of them could play because they're playing a tournament somewhere because they all joined the golf tour. There's an amateur golf tour. It's called the Golf Week Amateur Tour. That's right. The Golf Week Amateur Tour and they all joined it, and now all of a sudden I don't have anybody to play with on Saturdays. So I said, well, I guess I got to join this stupid tour. I don't want to play a tournament with people I don't know. I don't want to look bad. So I joined. I joined it. So I said, okay, I'll join it. But I didn't play a tournament for a few months because I didn't want to. But it turned out the, other than real estate, it's the greatest thing I do. It's you. It's almost like having your own PGA tour. You know, we have our standings, we have our tournament. You know, how many of you won? Where did you finish? Which tournament's coming up next? Who's playing it? It's you know, it's a great. It's for me. It's I would do nothing else. It's really well done, but because of these tournaments that I play in, so you try to make yourself a good golfer. So you take lessons, you practice, and so I'll tell you what, if I'm not helping someone with real estate, that's where you can find me, either on the driving range or playing somewhere, or going on a trip somewhere to play golf. That's where you can find me, and I'm not gonna hide from that. You know, if you need me, you know how to get me. But that's where I am unless I'm helping someone look at a house.
So as we transition to start wrapping this podcast,
We have to wrap this up.
Okay. We have to wrap it up a little bit, but we're gonna transition to the only part of this that is actually consistent between episodes is your favorite things, or this or that. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a few questions. You have option A, option B. You get to pick.
Okay.
Okay. So we're gonna start off with the standard one.
Like a little fun thing you did.
Yeah, it's a little fun thing. So
wait, the other realtors do this too?
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So beach or boat?
Excuse me?
Beach or boat?
That's a good one. Can I elaborate or just okay?
Yeah.
So when I first moved here, I'd say beach all day, but now I'm going to say boat. I think being on a boat around Hilton Head, it's not just ocean, guys. It's not just ocean. It's the Broad Creek. It's the Intercoastal Waterway. It's the May River. It's our waters here. If you're looking at the island from a boat, there's nothing more spectacular.
Steak or seafood?
I'm going to say steak. And partially, look, I grew up on crabs, blue crabs in Maryland. Grew up on them. It's the best food of all time. But certain shellfish, sometimes you get adverse reactions. So yeah, I'll take a steak any day.
Now, this is normally an easy question for most people, but this is going to be hard for you. Golf or tennis?
As a player or observer?
Player.
Right now?
In general. That's why I said it's going to be hard, because you've done both.
Well, okay. Well, if this were 25 years ago, I'd say tennis, but now it's golf. And I say, you know, I've played baseball, played football, played basketball, tennis, and golf. And I think the hardest sport ever created is golf. I think it's the hardest sport to pick up. You know, you've got a club that's 5 feet long, 4 feet long, whatever it is, and a head that you're hit that's maybe 3 or 4 inches long, and you got to take the club back behind your head and swing down at the ball and sort of send it in a certain direction. It's difficult. It's really tough, and I don't think there's any golfer that ever says that he's good, or she. Not one time do you hear that from a golfer. It's difficult, but it's to me it's the best sport.
I have to agree with you.
Yeah.
Oh man, what's the last one? We're gonna leave from that. So now I'm gonna ask you your favorites. Okay. Favorite restaurant.
Well,
and you can elaborate why.
I'm going to say it's tough to choose just one. I mean, that's why I'm hesitating.
All right, here. Yeah. Favorite spot to get lunch, favorite spot to get dinner.
Okay, I got two of them. One, lunch and it's probably not on everyone's list. I'll go to Stu's Sub Shop any day. Stu's Sub Shop is in Caligny Plaza down on the south end off Pope Avenue. It's a small little sub shop. It's your typical beach sub shop. What does that mean? It's not it's definitely not a nice restaurant, but it's like a little sub shop, and if you want the best sub on the planet, that's where you go. So that's why I choose Stu's Sub Shop for lunch. Favorite spot for dinner, a lot of great restaurants on Hilton Head. That's part of what we're known for. But
So we'll break this up. We'll do a casual dinner, like you're just going out, and then we'll do like you're gonna go out. You want to grab yourself like a nice dinner.
okay, that's a good way to do it. And look, as she walks by, this is Susan Falco right here, one of the best realtors around. If I don't answer my phone when you call me, call Susan. Back to restaurants. The casual place, I'm going to choose Char Bar. Char Bar is in Park Plaza on the south end, near the entrance to Sea Pines, next to the movie theater. It's owned by the Surge Group, who I think they do it right. They've got a bunch of restaurants, but Char Bar I love. The staff, the waiters, the waitresses, the bartenders, the manager, they welcome you with a smile, and the food's really good. In fact, I was there the other night with some friends. Now, the less casual one, well, not less casual, but the more, if my parents were here for one night and they wanted to go to a restaurant, I would recommend Santa Fe Cafe. Santa Fe, right near the entrance to Palmetto Dunes. Actually, it's owned by our good friend Marshall Sampson, who is no longer a realtor with us, but he was years ago. But he purchased Santa Fe, and that's not why I'm saying it. I just think he's got one of the best restaurants around. Partly because their cowboy cut ribeye is the best steak on the island. It's that thick, if the camera can see that, and it's incredibly well made. So that's where I would go.
Now this is going to be a 2-part question again. So favorite golf course, actually 3-part. Favorite golf course on Hilton Head, favorite golf course in Bluffton, and then favorite golf course that you've ever played anywhere.
I'll tell you, favorite golf course on Hilton Head, there's no question for me, it's Harbor Town. It's almost like you got to ask this question and take Harbor Town out of it, but if Harbor Town's in it, Harbor Town all day.
Okay, well, we'll take Harbor Town out.
Okay, well, I'll tell you why Harbor Town.
After you explain
Harbor Town has such a history, and it's sort of the beginnings, not the beginnings, but Sea Pines developer and legend Charles Frazier decided to build Harbor Town, the Harbor Town golf course. Obviously, it's in Harbor Town in Sea Pines, but they had space for 3 or 4 golf courses in Sea Pines, and he built that one where the 18th hole goes right up to the Harbor Town Marina. And, at the same time, he thought, how do we get people to know Hilton Head? How do we put Hilton Head Island on the map? This was the late 60s. And back then, obviously, there was no internet. People read newspapers. That's how you learned about the news. So to get Harbor Town in front of a lot of people, they built a golf course. And they took that golf course and attracted a PGA professional tournament to come and play at Harbor Town. The first one was 1969, and Arnold Palmer won the first one, and which was huge for Sea Pines. Arnold Palmer was one of the most popular players of all time. And for him to win at Sea Pines was really brought attention to Sea Pines. And that was Charles Frazier's idea. That's why he had the professional tennis tournament also, the Family Circle Magazine Cup in 1973, to attract people to Sea Pines, to buy property, to build their homes, to be part of Sea Pines. It was just ingenious. So Harbor Town Golf Course, designed by Pete Dye and also Jack Nicklaus. who at the time was up and coming and future best player of all time. Harbor Town is it's different. It's not just your regular golf course. The fairways are narrower, and over the years the trees have become more of an issue. The trees are sort of, they've kept trees there that sort of dictate how you play. You can't just hit down the middle. You might have to hit to the right side because there might be a tree in your way coming to the green. So it's a very demanding course, and but it's an absolute pleasure to play it. And I got a chance to play it 3 weeks ago. I play it maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and it's just a treat. So that's my Hilton Head best.
Okay, Bluffton.
Bluffton best. There's a lot of courses in Bluffton. When I first moved here, there were 2. There was Rose Hill, and there was, 2 communities, Rose Hill and Moss Creek, and that was it. Pretty much that was it. The 80s and early 90s. Well, let me take early 90s out. I'd say mid 80s, you had Rose Hill and you had Moss Creek. But then 1989, sort of era, 89, 90, they built Old South Golf Links. They built Hilton Head National. And then others started to pop up. The Crescent eventually, Eagles Point eventually, Island West eventually. And then years later, they built Hilton Head Lakes golf course. And there's probably a few I'm missing, but best one in
Belfair, Berkeley, College.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, those are all private.
The best.
I think my favorite course out in Bluffton, be it private, I'll say private. I'm going to say Colleton River, the Nicholas course. And I have friends who built a home in Colleton River, Deb and Paul, and I'm blessed every 4 to 6 months or so, we'll go out and play golf with Paul at Colleton River, and it's an absolute treat. But for public courses, I'm going to say my favorite is Hilton National, and I played it yesterday, and it's
great course.
Always in good shape. The grass is always green, and they take care of it. They really do take care of it. The greens are. Yesterday were good speed. They were about a 9, I'd say, and that means that determines how fast the greens will roll. The higher the number, the quicker they are. So Hilton National, I'll go play any day.
And favorite golf course anywhere in the world
that I've played?
That you've played.
I'm gonna say I've played some biggies. I've played the very first one. I've played St Andrews in Scotland, which was a treat because of how old it is and who's walked those fairways. And then some of the others over in Scotland and Ireland that were golf courses long before America was a country, probably. I don't know, but a long time. But I'm going to choose the course that I have played that I love the most. I'm going to say Pebble Beach Golf Links. I've played a lot of big ones in this country. The Blue Monster down in Miami at Doral. I've played Bethpage Black up in New York. Kiowa Island, the ocean course, is
stunning.
A close number 2 for me. It is stunning, and it's. I think God designed that course. It is nothing pristine about it. It's very natural, and I tell you, the Kiowa Island ocean course is magnificent. If you've never played it, you have to. But I have to choose Pebble Beach, partly because it's right along the Pacific Ocean, and I don't see the Pacific often. And historically, some of the best players who have ever walked have won events at that course, and they've got maybe 100 years of history there.
It's also very stunning to look at too.
Amazing. You can see whales out there jumping around in the ocean while you're playing. It's uncanny.
Well, JR, is there anything that we've missed that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I guess we're about to wrap it up. And usually as a tennis pro or even a realtor, that's my job to wrap things up.
The floor is yours.
So I tell you, the whole purpose of this podcast is to get to know people. And, we have here at Dune, realtors all over Hilton Head, some of the best I've ever seen, partially because realtors work together. Just because you're with Dunes Real Estate and maybe you have a transaction with another realtor from a different company, the greatest thing that I learned is that these realtors work together. The whole goal, like I said earlier, is for the consumer to be protected and for the consumer to have a good experience. And that's why I think our realtors in Hilton Head and Bluffton um, have created a style where they work together. And I hear often, you see these real estate TV shows, these reality shows where the realtors are yelling at each other. And you see realtors negotiating on the phone with the other realtor. That just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen like that. It's all about the buyer. It's all about the seller. And the realtor's job is to put them together to make sure everyone's comfortable during the trip. And, that's our job. And so this podcast, I think it's a great idea. It helps you to get to know realtors. I think Dunes Real Estate is the best company in our area, and that's why I'm here. We've been here since the late 70s, and there's a reason for that. But I think this podcast is a great idea because it lets people see who you're talking to. And even after me, you're going to see a lot more great realtors coming, sitting behind this microphone. So, and I don't know how the others did with the microphone. Is everyone all not embarrassed to talk or no? That's good.
Yeah,
well, that's good.
I try to make it fun.
You do. This is very fun. I can't imagine what would be more fun than sitting and talking.
I mean, we could have done this podcast on a golf course.
Actually, it's
while
a good
playing.
idea. Yeah, that's a really good idea.
That's a video series.
Yes, it is. You could have your drone. Yeah.
Grab a couple GoPros, drive around.
It's perfect.
Coming soon to YouTube.
Don't go away.
JR and Connor go play golf and talk about real estate and golf.
We'll be right back.
Ooh. Should we bring Pete?
No, because Pete would sort of take over.
Yeah.
You can do Pete by yourself.
No, we'll just leave Pete out of it. So, JR, where can people find you besides a golf course?
You mean give my contact information?
Yeah.
Well, if you want to come say hi to me, my office is at the entrance to Palmetto Dunes. You turn off of Highway 278 into Palmetto Dunes, second building on the right. That's what we call our rotunda. That's our main office. That's where our broker in charge is. That's what we call our main office. But my cell phone number, and I text a lot. You can text or call 843-422-3767. Or if you want to email me, it's easy, hiltonheadjr@aol.com. And I know AOL's old, still works. Or find me, Google me. But if you want to play golf or if you want to just chat, I'm here.
Also, he's really big on TikTok, doing all the trendy dances. So go follow him on TikTok.
No, I don't follow. I don't do TikTok. I follow Instagram and Facebook. That's about it. But I don't do TikTok.
No Twitter? I mean, X, whatever it's called.
I'm on it, but I don't really go to it. But I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I don't do TikTok.
Coming soon, JR playing golf on TikTok. So signing off from Behind the Dunes podcast. Again, I'm your host, Connor, with JR. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.